So the reason why Helix was put in place is over the years, over the past eight or 9 years, there's been a lot of implementation of Sitecore, and I guess if you guys watched the last video, with great responsibility comes great power. And Sitecore is one of those tools where you can build pretty much anything that you want, or you can build a disaster and kind of destroy it. And I see some people smirking in the room. Does that mean that maybe you guys have worked with some of those disastrous projects in the past, or?
We may have seen some.
Okay, may have seen some things. So, okay. I've seen a lot too, and so I think over the years, depending on who implemented the project, it can be slow, it can be fast, it can be good, it can be bad. And depending on the experience a particular business person or developer has had with the product, they may feel that Sitecore is good or bad. So I believe what Helix personally is designed to do is to create a set of principles, guidelines, that every developer in the Sitecore community can at least look to in terms of how Sitecore says you should build a Sitecore solution. It doesn't mean it's perfect. It doesn't mean it's going to be in line with every concept or every development idea that may be introduced into the market that you all may have experience with. It's just about setting standards and guidelines, okay? And I believe Sitecore is going to be using this methodology and this architecture for all of their upcoming modules, upcoming solutions going forward, so that if developer at company A develops a solution based on Helix, then developer B at company Z can read and understand at least where things are systematically placed, okay? So that's the idea of Helix. And then what I want to do is just kind of go through that slowly, unbox it, and use the Habitat example as the tool, I would say, to demonstrate some of those concepts. Has anybody here worked with Helix at all? Okay, good. Key concepts. I'm going to fly through this because this was in the last show, but I just want to come back to it. It's about modular architecture. I just want us to keep in mind that we're going to see feature, foundation, and project as the 3 layers of a Helix architecture. Usually there's the first layer here, which will be considered foundation. Then the secondary layer we will consider the feature layer, and then the projects will build on top of that. The idea of this architecture is to minimize the amount of dependencies you may have on a project. How many people have a Visual Studio solution with one web project in it on your current Sitecore solution? Okay. And that may be a typical way of doing .NET development. You have one web project. You may have some additional projects that may have code in relation to your business logic layer or your data layer. I knocked down the microphone. And also, other external assemblies that may leverage some sort of logic. Okay, so that's traditionally Visual Studio projects are organized in that fashion. In Helix or in the Helix solution, we're going to see something quite different. So, and I want to go slow through that so you guys can see what that is. Just talked about that. All right, let's get into it. So. I'm going to step out the PowerPoint a little bit, and feel free to please ask me any questions you all may have. One thing I do, sorry, that's you guys are not seeing my screen yet. One thing I do want to highlight real quick is there is an entire website around Helix. If I could, there we go. I don't know how to work PowerPoint, apparently. There we go. There's an entire website around Helix documentation. When you get a chance, if you want to, if you're bored at work, instead of watching Netflix, you can turn on to the website and read maybe 100-page documentation about Helix and its concepts, the processes, and everything else. Most of everything that I've learned about it, I've read here. And in the past, I've done 2 websites based on it. and sometimes I have to refer back to it. Okay. So the first thing I want to do is I want to start from scratch and show you all my file system here. So what I'm going to do is I have a blank file system. There are 3 things that you need to get started with Helix. Number 1, you need a Sitecore zip file, the Sitecore installation. Quick question, when you all install Sitecore, and I'll pick you, when you install Sitecore, do you use the Sitecore installer or do you use a zip file? Okay, great, use a zip file, good. Okay, good. Use a zip file. So I typically like to use a zip file as well. When the installer first came out a couple of years ago, it just didn't work well. Didn't work at all. Sorry if Sitecore sees it. They probably fixed those bugs so it works a lot better. But I haven't had an opportunity to use it. I'm just so used to using a zip file. Also, you can go to GitHub, type in Sitecore Helix or Sitecore Habitat GitHub, and you can download the solution. Okay. And what I've done in this file system is I've downloaded the GitHub solution for Habitat. I've unzipped it and I copied it inside of this folder, so it's untouched. And also I've downloaded the Sitecore solution and threw it up on my file system, and I'm starting from a blank slate. Okay, and I'm doing this on purpose so that you all can see how to at least get it running. Okay, because if you don't see it from the beginning, if I just say, hey, it's there, then you may feel that I've done something beforehand in order to prepare the solution. So I want to start from a blank slate. But one thing that I've done that I've used in the past is I want to show everyone this is I've built a PowerShell script for myself to install Sitecore. So what this script is going to do, it's going to copy. Well, here, let me run it first. If it breaks, we'll do it again. Okay. What this script is going to do, it's going to unzip the Sitecore folder. It's going to create my IIS website. It's going to connect my databases to SQL Server. It's going to create a user, and it's going to set up all the configurations. And then at the end, I should just be able to have a Sitecore solution without doing anything. Okay. So it was a pretty cool test to see if I could just create and install Sitecore within. It probably would take 4 minutes. Okay. That way, I don't have to go get anything, do anything. It will set the license file for me, and everything works. So as that script is running, after that, I'll install Web Forms Marketer. A new version of Habitat requires you to install Web Forms Marketer. Be careful of that. If you all go home and download Habitat from GitHub, it will only work with a certain version of Sitecore. So make sure you read the README file. Last time I downloaded the brand new version of Sitecore, I downloaded the brand new version of Habitat and tried to get it to work, failed. Took me just a couple hours to figure that part out. So to save you all a couple hours, make sure you get the right version of Sitecore for the Habitat solution that you're downloading.
Is this PowerShell script part of the download, or is it just something you created?
No, this is just something that I created to help me out. So this is not something that Sitecore's provided. This is my own secret ninja script that is not pleasant in any shape, form, or fashion. But I use it to spin up Sitecore solutions all day. So it was really easy to set up the installation when I need to test out certain things, and this is one of the cool things about it. So it's still running. So while it's running, can anybody give me any question that they may have about Sitecore, any challenges they faced within the last 6 months that they've just been itching at them? Anybody? So nobody got any challenges they faced last week about Sitecore? All righty. So my script.
Sitecore is a pretty challenge-free environment, Ben. So.
Depends on how specific you want to get.
Yeah. Sorry, give me 1 second here.
Most of our issues are not Sitecore as much as how Sitecore is set up.
Well, how is Sitecore set up?
Is
Sorry about
it
that.
just architectural?
Yeah, basically, I think they got a lot of input from business users, so they made some architectural decisions based on what business requirements were. And that steered us into some real technical difficulties.
Okay.
So
Content architecture?
Yeah, so there's just some odd things that were done that didn't necessarily need to be done, that could have been
Got it.
probably discussed further with technical people.
Over-engineered?
I wouldn't even give that wrongly engineering.
Just wrongly.
Can you give us an example of wrongly engineered?
Well, one thing is that they wanted specifically the nodes within the Sitecore tree or subsites to have a space in the name.
Yeah.
So that required
site, something site, space with a space in it.
It required some custom coding to be put in, which then broke the links to everything. So custom code had to be put in to fix the links, and then it just was a downward spiral from there. And we would have just discussed with business, hey, you get one word site names, or use camel case or something.
No space in your site.
Would have solved a lot of problems.
Okay. So how did you guys fix that? Take out the space?
Starting over with it.
Maybe, yeah.
We took the spaces out.
Yeah, we're going to take the spaces out.
What?
That's
That's not the only
require like some big
issue.
changes and then like I said, the custom code changes.
Yeah.
But we made a lot of special modules that we didn't really need to touch.
And this is just all because of the site name?
All because it's like, yeah, I didn't have the space now. And a few of them don't, so that's a problem.
Okay. It's installing. I'm missing S. So there we go. Good. All right. Well, that's done. So let me log into Sitecore.
Edit out all that stuff in case our business people watch that.
No, that's good.
Yeah, we'll edit that.
I would keep that in because when you all do this yourself, you may go through the same thing. All right. So I'm gonna just go into Sitecore. So one thing about getting Sitecore, the next thing I'm going to do is install web forms and marketers. Who here has used web forms and marketers?
We've installed it.
Hmm?
We've installed it and I've seen the business people use it.
Good. How many people like it? Okay. Why not? Why does anybody like it?
That's some challenges.
All right. So I'm going to take, I hope you guys are watching. Take my technique here. Go to my Sitecore project here. And what I do when I install packages, I just drop them right in the packages folder. So it's typically all I do. Go to IIS, get my site here. There you go. What's the password?
That'd be more secure.
So first thing, using Habitat is to get Sitecore installed, and I'm just going to install the package. It takes about 3.4 minutes to install. The only reason I know that is because I timed it this morning on my machine. Well, originally when I did Habitat about, I don't know, maybe 4 months ago, it wasn't required. I think they've added some, I don't want to give it away, but I think they've added some things in here to where when you install Helix, it requires it, otherwise it just kind of bombs out, okay? So just got to install web forms and markers. Who here has used Unicorn? Great, Unicorn, good. It's beautiful, right?
It's a lot of different colors.
Well,
And there are actual unicorns.
huh?
There are actual unicorns.
I was talking about the Unicorn for Sitecore.
Yeah, when you sync,
Oh,
you get a randomly.
I never see any colors, so
Yeah.
I just see the orange. Okay, you scared me for a moment. I thought you were talking about real unicorns.
No,
Okay.
I'm serious.
Who is familiar with Git? Git. Okay, Git. This is going to be interesting. Okay. What about NPM? No package manager. Anybody else? NuGet. Okay, good. Okay, everybody raise their hand there. Okay. Wow. Okay. So as we go through So you know what, I'm gonna do something else. So while Sitecore's installing, I mentioned to you all that I had another project. What I'm gonna do is go here, go to this project here. I'm going to go to my C drive. All I did was unzip the Habitat solution and place it here. And I'm just gonna do npm install. Can anybody tell me what does that do?
Runs the configuration and downloads packages.
There you go. So npm just basically just downloads all the packages that Habitat is going to use. So if you don't have Node.js installed or npm installed, you're going to need that to be able to run Habitat. Okay, just got to know that, because if you don't know it and you try to use it, you're gonna get lost. Okay, so make sure you have Node.js installed and that you can actually run Node Package Manager and everything else. Also, make sure you have Gulp installed. Has anybody used Gulp before? Okay, great. You use Grunt.
But
Grunt versus Gulp world, huh?
We're gonna probably use Gulp.
Okay, why? Why is that?
Well, we were introduced to it by another guy in our group, and he said that Grunt's kind of old, the C# and the coding aspect of Gulp is kind of, more flexible.
Okay, okay. So one thing about the Habitat solutions that I've worked with, or the Helix type of architectures, I've had to get well versed in Gulp because of the scripts that come out of the box, or the scripts that I may need to use. You need to make it your own for your own local deployment. Okay, so if you're not familiar with it, I recommend read up on Gulp, get familiar with running the task and the commands. It's going to be a blessing to know what Sitecore is doing when you run some of the default scripts. Okay, so
Grunt alternative,
you know what? That is a good question. I don't know if there's a Grunt alternative. I'll take a note and find out. Yeah.
Because Gulp does about the same thing as Grunt.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a Grunt alternative for this. Okay, I just know that this particular script uses Gulp. Okay, it's good to know. All right, so Web Forms for Marketers is done. My npm install is done, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to open up the Visual Studio solution here, and I am going to not make the mistake I made this morning when I ran through this. So I'm going to make sure I open up in administrator mode, and I'm going to make everybody tone deaf by having my volume at 100. Okay. So let me just open this real quick here. So one thing about Habitat and this architecture is that you may end up with a lot of assemblies. The Habitat solution has 90 projects. How many projects do you all have in your solution? Maybe 5, 6, maybe 5 or 6. This has in the teens. Okay, 90.
Yeah, not
Not 90. How many do you have in the one you're working with? 13. Okay, so less than 20. 90. What happens when you compile that in Visual Studio? How long does that take? I'm going to demonstrate that here. So in the last video, I had some pros and cons about Helix. So one of them is the build time. So sometimes it can take very long just to build the solution, just to see your code. So you just got to be aware of that. You got to get used to it. How many develop solutions where the code is separate than the web root? Let me explain that again. So you have IIS you have on your local machine. Typically that's pointing to a folder on your file system. You can do this one or two ways. You can have Visual Studio, the web project, embedded directly into the web root so that when you compile and you make changes, it automatically updates. Or you can put your Visual Studio on a different part of the file system, and then when you build, it will copy the files and assets over to the web directory, and then you can see your website that way. So one I call in place, another one I call outside the web root. How many work with the in place installation? Anybody here? Okay, so everybody's working with their solution outside of the web root, and you guys build and push it over. What tools do you use to push it over to the web root? Just Visual Studio Publisher, Web Deploy? Okay. Is that typically the same thing that you do? What about you, Gilbert? What do you do? Publisher? Okay. So
both ways, but we've moved into more publishing.
More publishing. So this solution kind of uses that a little bit, but it uses Gulp to actually push the files over. Okay, so it's a little bit different. And there's something cool a little bit about that. Whenever a change happens, this script will automatically detect a change and push it over to your file system. So if you're working with something and you compile, instead of going to Visual Studio to publish, this will automatically detect the change and push the change directly to your web root.
You said that's the goal?
Yep, no, go ahead.
Isn't that big chromosome of 90 projects?
Exactly, right? Yeah, so those are some of the challenges of using the architecture. The thing about the script is they've optimized it over the past couple of months, and it would only detect changes. So if this project changed, then only those assemblies will go. Okay, so it's, so they're refining the scripts all the time. When I start working with it in October, it was really challenging, and so some people got, some developers resorted to just copying and pasting the files or reverting to the Visual Studio publish, those type of methods in order to get it to work. But if you do that, you kind of circumvent the process that is created for you. Okay. So as I've been talking that entire time, 90 projects just compiled. Okay, so just something to be aware of when you're using the solution. It doesn't mean that your solution will have 90 projects. This example does. Okay, I think the solution that I'm working in right now for a site that's about to go live, we probably have about 60 to 70 assemblies. Okay. Just so you all know, for the video, I got a couple frowns when I said that number of 60 to 70 assemblies. So. All right, so now we've installed this, and what I want to do, now that I've built this, let me just look at, let's look at Sitecore here. I want to refresh, and I want to show everybody that it's currently blank, and I don't think I'm going to get through everything today. We'll kind of follow up next time. But there is something cool. Everyone sees a blank Sitecore instance. It just has home. There's no nodes under home. Just a standard blank instance of Sitecore. Going to open up my Visual Studio. How many people are using Visual Studio 2015 and above? Okay. If you're going to work with a Helix-based solution based on the foundation of Habitat, you're going to need to work with 2015 or earlier. And the reason is because of Visual Studio Task Runner. Who has used Visual Studio Task Runner before? A little bit? A little bit? Okay. Let me show you what that is. So right here at the bottom at the screen, you see it says Task Runner Explorer. And what it's done is it's brought in all of my Gulp tasks inside of Visual Studio. Okay, so each one of these here is a Gulp task.
What made that happen?
Visual Studio.
Having the
Yeah. So, let me skip ahead a little bit. Let me move to show you the file system here. This is the file system of the solution for Habitat. There is a Gulp file located here. Okay, this Gulp file has all of the tasks for Gulp located inside of it. Okay, when this Visual Studio solution runs, it detects that there's a Gulp file, and automatically, you see here, it detects that there's a Gulp file up here, and it loads those tasks into Visual Studio. Then I can come into Visual Studio and then run any one of those tasks. Okay. Now, where are we? We have Sitecore installed. We have our Visual Studio set up with Habitat. We have NPM installed, and I've compiled all the projects. But how do I get Habitat into Sitecore? What do I have to do? Typically, you would need a Sitecore package, right? Take web forms markers. We download a Sitecore package. You all saw me. I put it in the packages folder. I hit install, and it installed web forms marker. Well, how do I get Habitat installed? Through this Gulp task. I'm going to come here and click this default and hit run. And if it does an error, we'll figure out the error and we'll run it again. But I'm going to hit run. What this task is going to do, it's going to build all 90 projects again. Perform any transformations that it needs to perform. Restore any NuGet packages that it needs to restore. And then at the very last step, it is going to perform a unicorn sync. So I mentioned earlier, what is unicorn? Unicorn to me is very, very beautiful. It's a way to manage your Sitecore assets on the file system, and you can also put them in source control. It's an alternative, I think, possibly to using a solution like TDS, if you're familiar with TDS. Who's familiar with TDS? Okay. Are you guys using TDS now? Okay. Okay. So Unicorn's free. And what Unicorn does is it takes an asset, it takes an item from Sitecore, you can serialize it, it puts it on a file system, and then you can take that serialized Sitecore item in the file system and check it into your source control. And then when developers log into the source control, whether using Git or TFS, and they get latest or they merge from a different branch, they get that and they can sync their Unicorn file system with Sitecore and have all those assets. That prevents you all from, passing packages around from one developer to another. That prevents you having to install this package on the QA server or the test server. My code broke. Why? Well, we forgot, Joe, there's no Joe here, right? Joe forgot to install package 1234582 dash whatever the date was, okay?
Unicorn free?
Unicorn is free, correct. It's an open source solution. It's free with a double free. It's really free. It's not fake free. It's really free. Nope, it's free.
Always been free.
Yeah, it's open source. So you can. I'm going to start contributing to the project if I can. Yeah, go ahead.
So before, when I used Unicorn, you had to start after the fact that you had the projects all up and running and do an initial serialization.
Correct.
And got out of sync was very frequently. It was very fragile, I'd say.
What version of Unicorn were you using?
I don't remember, but 2 years ago.
Okay, yeah, they've improved it drastically, especially when 3.0 came out.
Okay.
Yes.
So I noticed you didn't do anything.
I'm not-
Unicorn is just magically already here.
Well, actually, right now
Or
it's
was
still
that-
building, but you'll see it, and yes, I won't have to do anything. Unicorn will automatically begin installing all the assets without having to do an initial sync through the interface.
So I guess my question was that in your Ninja script, or was that in Habitat?
That's in Habitat. Okay, so my Ninja script was just installing Sitecore.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure
Thank
you
you.
have Unicorn in there.
Okay, I see.
Did Unicorn get installed here, or was it already there because of the solution?
Okay, Unicorn came a part of the Habitat solution. Okay, so we're talking about Helix. Habitat's built on Helix, and part of the Habitat solution came Unicorn, the gulp script, the NPM packages that we need to build. Thank you. I need to make that clear.
If you were going to put Unicorn into another project after the fact, would it be like a NuGet install, or would it be an extension, or what would it be?
There is a NuGet install for it.
Okay.
So, and if you haven't worked with Unicorn, it's great. Let me just say it that way. But you got to get familiar with it. Just like anything, if you don't know it, the unknown kind of scares you a little bit, because you could destroy your Sitecore solution, or another developer could if you don't have stops to check it. Someone checks in code and they deleted the entire home node, and then you get latest and then that checks in. If you get latest and they check that in, then it could mess up your Sitecore environment. All right, what happened here? I made a mistake. Great. I'm glad you all don't make this mistake. The mistake that I made is when you open up Habitat, there are certain variables that you need to define in order to get the solution to work. Basically, my script errored out because it's not expecting things in the right place. So we're going to go through those variables here. All right. I made it look a little too easy. So there is something called the gulp-config. Okay? In this config, it has something called an instance root. And so what I'm going to do is go to my Sitecore solution. My site is stored here. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have a question? There's a NuGet install for you. Okay, so, and if you haven't worked with Unicorn, it's great. Let me just say it that way. But you got to get familiar with it. Just like anything, if you don't know it, the unknown kind of scares you a little bit, because you could destroy your Sitecore solution, or another developer could if you don't have stops to check it. If someone checks in code and they deleted the entire home node, then you get latest and then that checks in. If you get latest and they check that in, then it could mess up your Sitecore environment. All right, what happened here? I made a mistake. Great. I'm glad you all don't make this mistake. The mistake that I made is when you open up Habitat, there are certain variables that you need to define in order to get the solution to work. Basically, I script error out because it's not expecting things in the right place. So we're going to go through those variables here. All right. I made it look a little too easy. So there is something called the gulp-config. Okay? In this config, it has something called an instance root. And so what I'm going to do is go to my Sitecore solution. My site is still here. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have a question? Did you
got it.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to my Sitecore root here. See my record store. And I'm going to make that my instance. Now be very careful on this copy and paste, but there should be double backslashes here so they can escape properly when it runs through Go. This is using JavaScript. My folder structure is set up a little bit differently. So I'm going to call it web. And I have an extra root here called web. Okay? So I need to set that up. The next thing I need to set up is my publishing targets for the Visual Studio Publish, which is located here, Publish Settings. So this is my site, so I need to set that up so it publishes locally. Okay. Now, one thing, depending on the source control solution you are using, some of these files need to be local to the developer's environment. So you may have to exclude them from being checked into whatever source control solution you're using. If you use a Git, you may need to ignore that from being checked in. If you're using TFS, you need to set it to ignore so that it doesn't affect your local settings. Okay? If you are in an organization and you all are following the same standards from a development standpoint and you all have the same naming scheme, that makes it easier. Okay? So we've updated the gulp-config, we've updated the publish settings, and then there's one more file we need to update, or two more files. This file, this is the source folder. This source folder is going to point to my project. And my project, I'm calling my source code. There's a source folder here, and I need to make sure that it's pointing there. Okay. This is what tells Unicorn where to grab its assets. And we'll kind of go through that. Somebody's paying attention. All right. What I'm going to do is make a quick change for this. I'm going to grab this guy here and update the root name here. And then I'm going to do one more change. My screen's a little bit smaller than yours. Thank you, though. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Now, if you were gonna start a new solution, would you pull this down and rename and gut it, or would you build your own? Knowing all the tools that you need to add.
What I've done in the past is I've pulled Habitat down, stripped everything out of it, and then build it from there. What I'm working on is creating a starting point for myself that is has everything that I want in it. Next time we meet, I'll go over creating and modifying the code. I will also go over, if that's the topic, how to add a new project. There's some very interesting things to know about getting the solution to look the way this looks. Because it looks organized, but the file system is very different than how Visual Studio presents itself. And knowing those little, I say gotchas, can save a lot of headache if you're not doing it in a certain project. And so you can learn from my attempts over the past 6 months of trying to get it to work, but it can be very tedious if you don't actually have a step-by-step process. Great question. Are we at time?
We've got plenty of time.
Okay. Any more questions? Well, what I'll do is, I ran to this earlier today. Let me actually close this out and restart my Visual Studio. I think it has a problem. There's a signature that it needs to create with your Sitecore instance. So right now, I'm just gonna reinstall Visual Studio and hit Sync Unicorn again and just okay it goes. If not, we can do some
Each time
quick
you
debugging
hit the
on
sync, does it get faster because it's already done some of the work, or
No.
do you have to redo it?
I think this is just the very first time.
Okay.
You know, it's and I'm impatient sometimes. So, but then you look at me like it should be done already. When it works, it goes a lot faster when you can actually see it. So,
And they took Taskburner out of 2017, that's why we used 2015.
no, I said at least 20,
Oh, okay.
2015. You scared me for a moment. No, I used
You
to.
did say or before.
Oh, I apologize. And if you're using at least 2015,
Okay.
not before, not 2013, because it wasn't.
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry. Correction for the video. 2015 or higher. Great. Any other questions? So who's gonna go play with this when they get
I'm the only one going on the migrant.
I've already started this. So.
home? You started using Habitat already?
I pulled this all down. I was reading through the setup document
cool.
from
What would you experience when you went through it? Did it seem simple?
Getting it to this point is fine. I haven't gotten as far as you have, so it's not running yet. I'm still going through the steps of gulp and all that stuff.
Did you run into any challenges?
To just download the zip and unzip it.
Oh, okay, that's
Yeah,
the okay.
yeah.
You just
Yeah,
download
I
it.
haven't
Okay.
gotten that.
Okay, I see. So, do you have npm installed? Okay, yeah. Get all that installed. So while it's waiting, what I'll do is run through a couple of. Let me show you the difference of the file system. So I'll just skip ahead there. In Visual Studio, we have a feature, foundation, and project folder. Okay. If I expand feature, we have these additional folders of each feature within the project. Okay. I'm just going to use the FAQs as the first one. If I expand FAQs, if I expand accounts, there's 2 Visual Studio projects within the accounts feature. I got to make sure I said the terminology correct. One of these projects is a web project, and if I expand it, it has a web config. Another project is basically a unit test project. Okay, and they're all located nice and neatly in this folder. Let's take a look at the file system. So, feature, accounts, we see something a little different, don't we? We don't see the 2 projects that you were expecting to see folders. I mean, we kind of do, but we really don't. One is called code, is the web project. Okay? Tests is the unit test project. There's another folder there called serialization. In that folder is all of your unicorn YML files. Why is this important? This is important because every aspect of the accounts feature is contained together. I can literally copy and paste my code, my Sitecore, my test projects, and put them in another solution and have them run. I mean, obviously I need some of the dependencies from the foundation layer, but it's all contained together. So it's very, very nicely organized. So every project that you're seeing in that tree has a project, most likely a unit test project, and a folder for serialization, for serialized items. All of my Sitecore assets related to this particular project is within this folder together, okay? So that means my FAQs project has no idea about the assets of the accounts project and vice versa. They don't know anything about each other. They can be installed independently. I can take my accounts feature and its dependencies in the foundation layer put it into a blank Sitecore instance and install them, and they should install. Okay? Does that make sense?
Can I confuse it now? Now that that makes sense to everybody? I have a question.
It ran. Okay, this one's okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so inside your, okay, so say you have a site that has multiple brands to it, right? So would your, if you needed something specific to a brand, you would also put that in the feature. So your feature would be, say you have brands of like dish soap and hand soap, just to keep it completely away from anything. And then from that, you both, what you want to use FAQ between both of those. Project is just for everything that's shared 100%, right? And then you would put your brand specific stuff under feature? Or would you put maybe brand specific stuff under project?
When you say brand specific stuff, what do you mean?
There would be, go ahead.
The type of soap.
Yeah, well, there would be like features that are just associated with one of those two brands. I guess you would just put that feature in and not associate with anything.
Okay, when we say, so let's be careful with terminology. When we say feature, are we talking about Helix feature, or are we talking about a feature of the website or business?
It'd be a feature of the website.
Okay, so
Like
give me an
a
example of
component,
that
like a
feature.
component.
Okay, give me, what does that component do?
It allows you to register for something.
Okay, so it's a registration component, right? Okay, and that registers for emails or something, right? Okay, and the registration of emails, that can be the same on this business unit versus that business unit? Is it the exact same, or what's different about it?
Well, I would say maybe it's only used for one business.
Okay, maybe it's only used for one business. Will another business use it?
Maybe, I guess.
Okay, I would create that as a feature. Okay, not necessarily as the project, and the project for that brand will use that feature. If another project comes along or another brand comes along, then it can use that feature.
Then you handle the branding and the content side.
Exactly. There you go. Right. There you go. Right. And on the project, the style sheets will be all specific to the project and not to the actual feature that you develop. So you can, develop it autonomous of whatever will use it, and it's going to depend on how you set up your architecture, code architecture within that solution to be able to create something nice and elegant. Okay. I'll open up content editor and then I'll pause because if I go any further, I got about 3 or 4 more hours worth of content to talk about. So there we go. Here is Habitat in my blank Sitecore instance, and all I did was run the script. Had to wait a little bit, but now if I update something, I can run it and it will run a lot faster. Okay. No initial serialization with Unicorn. It's all there. So the entire content tree, if I go to layouts, under the render views, you can see now there's a feature folder. Okay? And all the features for those renderings are there. If I go to templates, under feature, all the folders for those features are there. If I go to foundation, all of its folders are there. Okay? Now all I did was install Sitecore, unzip Habitat, change the configurations, and the goal, when I did the right thing, boom, and install everything.
And if you change habitat, it'll run that script again, and then you get the changes to show up here again.
So if I were to, now when you say change habitat, what do you
Add
mean?
another feature, right? Or like, I'm trying to figure out what
To
you
the
got there.
project.
Yeah, if you add another feature to the project, then a folder will have to show up here eventually, right?
Correct.
Do you add it more in Sitecore or in there? Or
So
does it matter?
it doesn't matter. So if you're using, Sitecore Rocks or something like that, when you create a new feature, I'll probably create a little step-by-step on how to do that, because there's certain things you want to make sure you're included. There's a serialization project that we need to talk about, how to exclude assets, how to add assets, all of that becomes into play, because if you're doing Unicorn from the beginning, you know a little bit about Unicorn, but this takes using Unicorn to an entirely different level. Okay, so it's very rich in what's there. But yeah, I would just go through, create the folders inside of Sitecore here, because I'm the developer creating this feature, create everything that's needed, the renderings, the layouts, the templates, the folder structure, sync it to Unicorn, and then check that into source control, and then the next developer can get it, and when they sync, they'll have all those assets. Okay. Did I answer your question? All right.
Part of her question was, where do you make that change? Is it in Sitecore, or is it in Visual Studio, or is it a mix of both?
It can be either. So if you're using Sitecore Rocks, you can use Visual Studio to do it. If you're inside of Sitecore, you can just use the interface to do it. And then once you make the change, wherever you make the change at, Unicorn will detect that there is a change and write that change directly to your file system.
Doesn't that kind of do that for our person? Like whenever I would add something
Mm-hmm.
in the tree
Well, the difference would be Unicorn in this instance versus within Bronco, you're creating an actual file on the file system.
but that it's still synced by itself. Does it use something like that?
Oh, Bronco is showing what files you have on the file system.
Right. Let me see if I can show an example real quick. Is that fair? Let's modify something real quick here so you all can see how that works. So I'm in the feature account settings. I'm gonna go to templates here. Yep, I'm in templates, accounts, account settings here. You guys can kind of see that on my screen. Account settings, interest, login teaser. And then I'm going to add another section. Right here. Oh, let me go up here, sorry. Accounts. Test. If it doesn't work, that means I didn't set up something correctly. So, there you go, test one.
Can you open the file? I'm curious.
All right, no problem. There you go. I mean, I don't go around reading UML files all day, but yeah.
Why?
So why? I mean, at some point,
Binary is
free time.
It's magic, but it's not binary. We can,
No, you can read it and modify it, and so. And you can do file comparisons on it. So,
Right.
if developer X says they didn't delete your template, you can compare the files. Had happened to me before. I didn't do
Developers don't
it.
ever
Your
lie
name
about
is
stuff
right
like
there.
that.
You had a question?
Do you need to run Unicorn every time or is it?
Good question. So, because I'm the one that made the change, it's on my file system already. So I don't need to run Unicorn because it started with me. If I were to check this code into a source control repository and get latest, this file would be on my file system. But my Sitecore instance would not know anything about it until I ran a Unicorn sync. And I can do that through that sync task that I was creating in Go. I can do that by hitting that button. Or I can do it through the traditional way of logging into /unicorn at the root of the website and doing it that way as well. It will still work.
Yeah, and
So
that
you-
way you get the unicorn gifts.
Yeah, there you go. The unicorn gifts. That's correct. You had a question?
That's the colorful stuff.
Every
Yeah.
time you.
Or you're in for a treat, trust me.
So every time you get latest, you run next step.
So if you're getting latest, depending on what source control system you're using, if you're getting latest and you work with multiple developers, you want to make sure that you do sync. Because it's possible they may have code that requires that Sitecore item in order to run.
But it doesn't automatically.
But you can wire up the events to do this, right?
And you just run the default task. Get latest, hit the default.
There were events, I guess you could say, on build, you could say run unicorn, but you wouldn't want to run it every single time, right?
No.
So you just wanted, if there was an event that said, I got latest, then you could wire up that event to run then, but I don't know if there's an event for sync.
Yeah, I don't know if there's an event for determining if you get latest or not, depending on the source control solution. But typically, if you were to, if you're using Git, you merge with a branch, it's there. Then you run Unicorn Sync to make sure that your solution is in sync with all the code. Correct. Okay. If you're using TFSing, you get latest.
Yeah.
You run your Unicorn Sync after that, just to make sure your Sitecore database is up to date. Okay. The goal is to make sure that your Sitecore database is in sync with your code base. You can develop with it and you may not notice it, it may not break anything, but you may ask yourself, why isn't your functionality working? It's because you may not have run a Unicorn Sync, okay?
And the unicorn front end is a web interface?
Yes, so I can go here, /
Off the side.
brings up this color. This is the real unicorn that it will find. Okay. All 90 projects, or however many requires unicorn. Okay. So that's all that I have for you all today. Next time, I want to go over creating an actual modifying Helix. Let's create a new project, and let's dive a little bit more into to serialization. Okay. Any more questions?
What's the date of the next meeting?
We don't have a date just yet, but we'll send it out. Definitely, it's going to be next month.
Do you sync these individually here? Or will it, like if you click that top one sync, will it do all of them? Or
Yeah. So typically, what I do, I'll check this box
just
here.
out of curiosity, can you
Bam.
do just one?
I can check this box and do all, or I can check one and do one. Have you seen this one?
I have not seen I have not seen a version where you could do them individually.
Yeah. So the new version is nice. And I think in the old version they had problems with auto syncing. So I think in this version it's a lot better. Okay. So, cool. All right. Well, that's all I got for you guys. Okay. Have fun.
Right.
Thank you.